I'm Audrey, 32, and literally last weekend, my rep as a top-tier graphic designer? Yeah, it totally backfired. The prestigious award I'd poured my soul into earning? It blew up into a family snub at the gala where I was supposed to shine. My family, who never miss a chance to gush over my siblings' mediocre wins, booked a last-minute vacation, leaving me alone on the biggest night of my career. They straight up demanded I get over it when I called them out, and when I clapped back, the phone line went dead silent. "You're too dramatic, Audrey," Mom snapped, with my siblings' smug agreement humming in the background. But here's the tea. Their shade didn't break me. It lit a spark. I'm not just pushing back, I'm about to flip the script and change everything. A quick note, this story is copyrighted by the YouTube channel Guest Stories. Reposting, revoicing, or editing this content without permission constitutes copyright infringement. Thank you for respecting original creative work. Now, back to the story. The gala was in a sleek downtown venue, all glass walls and chandeliers that caught the light like 1,000 tiny stars. I stood on the edge of the crowd, my black dress hugging my frame, the weight of my portfolio's success heavy in my chest. My design for a global ad campaign had won the Pinnacle Award, a prize that could catapult my career into the stratosphere. I'd spent months on it, mouth sketching late into the night, my desk littered with coffee cups and crumpled drafts. My fingers still ached from the stylus, my eyes burned from staring at screens, but I'd done it. I'd created something that made industry giants nod in approval. And yet, as I scanned the room, my heart sank. No familiar faces. No mom, no dad, no siblings. Just a sea of strangers clapping politely as my name echoed through the speakers. I'd texted them weeks ago. "It's the Pinnacle Award," I'd written, attaching a photo of the invitation, gold embossed and official. "Please come?" Mom replied with a thumbs-up emoji, which I took as a yes. My brother Jake said he'd try to make it. My sister Lila didn't even respond. I should have known. This wasn't the first time they'd left me hanging, but it stung worse than ever. I gripped my clutch, nails digging into the leather, and forced a smile as I stepped onto the stage. The presenter handed me the award, a sleek glass trophy that felt heavier than it looked. I mumbled a thank you, my voice catching as I glanced at the empty seats I'd reserved. Back at my table, I set the trophy down and checked my phone. A group text from Mom. "Sorry, sweetie, last-minute trip to the lake house. You'll be fine, right?" My stomach twisted. The lake house. They'd chosen a weekend getaway over my moment. I typed a reply, my thumbs shaking. "You couldn't skip one trip?" No response for an hour, then Dad's curt message. "Don't make this a thing, Audrey." I stared at the screen, my throat tight. Jake chimed in. "It's just an award. Chill." Lila added a laughing emoji. I wanted to scream, to hurl the phone across the room, but instead I shoved it into my clutch and took a deep breath. I'd always been the odd one out. Growing up, I was the kid with paint on her jeans, sketching in corners while Jake played soccer and Leela aced debate club. They got trophies and framed certificates. I got "that's nice, dear" for my art. But this was different. This was the Pinnacle Award, a career-defining moment, and they couldn't even pretend to care. I sipped my wine, the bitterness mixing with the taste on my tongue. The room buzzed with chatter, designers and execs networking, their laughter sharp in my ears. I felt like a ghost, invisible, despite the trophy gleaming on the table. Then I saw her. Elena Voss, the design legend whose work I'd idolized since college. She was across the room, her silver hair catching the light, her presence commanding without effort. I'd studied her campaigns, her bold use of color, her ability to make a single image tell a story. She was everything I wanted to be, and she was looking right at me. My heart raced as she approached, her steps deliberate, her eyes sharp but kind. "Audrey, right?" she said, her voice low and warm. I nodded, stunned. She leaned in, pressing something cold and metallic into my palm, a key, ornate and heavy. "You're meant for more than this room," she whispered. "Find the collective, they're waiting." I stared at the key, its edges digging into my skin. What was this? Some kind of metaphor? A prank? But Elena's expression was serious, her gaze urging me to trust her. I closed my fingers around the key, my pulse pounding. My family's absence still burned, but this felt like a lifeline. I didn't know what the collective was, but I knew one thing: I was done begging for scraps of approval. Whatever this key unlocked, I was ready to find out. The key felt cool against my skin as I slipped it into my pocket. its weight a strange comfort amid the gala's fading applause. Elena had vanished into the crowd before I could ask more, leaving me alone with my thoughts and the empty seats mocking me. As I nursed another glass of wine, trying to ignore the ache in my chest, memories flooded in, sharp, unbidden flashbacks to all the times my family had made me feel like an afterthought. It wasn't just tonight. This neglect had been building for years, a pattern so ingrained it felt like part of my DNA. I leaned against the bar, my fingers tracing the trophy's edge, and let my mind drift back to those moments, each one a fresh cut. It started when I was a kid, maybe 10 years old, in our cluttered living room with the faded floral couch and the TV always blaring in the background. I'd won my first art contest at school, a county-wide thing where my drawing of a stormy sea beat out dozens of others. I remember rushing home, the certificate clutched in my sweaty hands, my backpack thumping against my back. "Look!" I'd burst out, shoving it toward Mom as she stirred dinner on the stove. She glanced at it, her spoon pausing mid-stir, and said, "That's nice, honey, now set the table." No hug, no frame on the wall. Dad was in his recliner, eyes on the game, grunting something about good job without looking up. But when Jake scored a goal in his Little League soccer game that same week, oh, the house exploded. Mom baked his favorite cake, chocolate with sprinkles, and Dad slapped him on the back so hard Jake winced. They paraded his plastic trophy on the mantel like it was Olympic gold. I sat at the dinner table, poking at my slice, my certificate forgotten under a pile of mail, my fists clenched under the table, nails biting into my palms as I swallowed the lump in my throat. Why wasn't my win enough? Fast forward to high school, graduation day. I designed the yearbook cover, spending nights hunched over my desk, eraser shavings everywhere, perfecting the layout until my eyes blurred. The principal even mentioned it in his speech, calling it innovative and professional. I walked across the stage in my cap and gown, diploma in hand, scanning the bleachers for my family. They were there, but barely. Mom was checking her watch, Dad whispering to Jake about his upcoming college visit. Lila, 2 years younger, fidgeted with her phone. After the ceremony, I approached them, beaming. "Did you hear what the principal said about the yearbook?" Mom nodded absently. "Yeah, sounded good. But Jake's valedictorian speech next year? That's the big one." Jake puffed up, grinning, while Lila rolled her eyes but smiled at him. I forced a laugh, but inside my stomach knotted. I avoided their eyes, staring at my shoes scuffing the gym floor. That night, they took us to dinner to celebrate, but the talk was all about Jake's scholarships and Lila's debate wins. My yearbook, not a word. I picked at my salad, the fork scraping the plate louder than necessary, now my cheeks burning with unspoken hurt. College was worse. I majored in graphic design, pouring everything into it. My junior year, I landed an internship at a big agency in the city, beating out hundreds of applicants. It meant late nights on the train, sketches in my lap, but I thrived. When I told the family over Sunday dinner, roast chicken, the smell filling the kitchen, Dad chewed slowly and said, "Design? That's like drawing for a living?" Mom patted my hand. "As long as it pays the bills." But Lila's acceptance to law school? Fireworks. They threw a party, relatives crammed into the backyard, toasts clinking. Jake's promotion at his accounting firm got him a new watch from Dad. Me, I got a "congrats" text from Mom misspelled. I remember sitting in my dorm room that night, the internship offer letter in my hands, tears blurring the words. My roommate asked why I was upset, and I shrugged it off, but my jaw clenched so tight it ached. Why did their conventional paths, sports, law, numbers, get the spotlight while my creativity was dismissed as a hobby? Even in my 20s it didn't stop. My first big freelance gig, designing a logo for a startup that went viral. The check was decent, enough to pay off some loans. I emailed the family a link to the article praising my work. Crickets for days, then a reply from Jake, "Cool, but have you thought about a real job?" Meanwhile, Lila passed the bar exam, and they flew her out for a fancy dinner. Photos flooded the group chat. Smiles, champagne. I liked them all, my thumb hovering before pressing, a bitter taste in my mouth. Last year, when I launched my own online portfolio and got featured in a design magazine, Mom called. "Saw your thing online. Nice pictures." That was it. But Jake buying a house? Endless posts, visits, housewarming gifts. I drove home once gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles whitened. wondering if I'd ever measure up. Back at the gala, these memories swirled like a storm, each one building on the last. I set my glass down harder than intended, the clink echoing. The key in my pocket pressed against my thigh, a reminder that maybe there was something else out there. My family's pattern was clear. They celebrated the safe, the traditional. Jake's steady job, Lila's courtroom wins, those fit their mold. My art, it was invisible, like me. I straightened my shoulders, the trophy's reflection catching my eye. Tonight's snub wasn't new, it was the culmination. But holding that key, I felt a shift. Their neglect had forged something in me. Resilience, maybe, or defiance. I didn't know what the collective was, but if it offered even a sliver of recognition, I was chasing it. The gala lights dimmed slightly, signaling the end, and I gathered my things, my steps firmer. No more waiting for their approval. It was time to seek my own. As I stepped out of the gala into the cool night air, the city lights blurred through a haze of unshed tears. My heels clicked against the pavement, echoing in the empty street, while the key in my pocket seemed to pulse with its own rhythm. I hailed a cab, sliding into the back seat and giving the driver my address, in a voice that sounded steadier than I felt. The trophy sat heavy in my lap, its glass surface cold under my fingers. As the cab pulled away, the venue shrinking in the rearview mirror, my mind raced. Not to the family's vacation photos that would inevitably pop up on social media, but to how I'd gotten to this. The project that won me this award, the one I'd poured my heart into without a single word. It was my secret, built in the shadows of their indifference. And tonight, holding this trophy alone, I let myself relive the night it all came together. The aha moment that turned my frustration into triumph. It was about 6 months ago in my small apartment studio, the kind with exposed brick walls and a drafting table crammed into the corner. I'd been freelancing for years, taking gigs that paid the rent but left me hollow, always chasing that next level. The family's dismissals echoed in my head during those late nights. Design's fun, but when are you getting a stable job like Jake? Or, Lila's arguing cases in court, what are you arguing with, colors? I'd stopped sharing details long ago, keeping my bigger ambitions locked away. But then came the open call for the global ad campaign, a nonprofit pushing environmental awareness, wanting a visual that could change minds with one glance. The prize? The Pinnacle Award and a contract that could set me up for life. I entered on a whim, but once I started, it consumed me. I sketched concepts for weeks, my floor littered with discarded papers, my recycle bin overflowing with failed ideas. Nothing clicked. The deadline loomed, 2 days away, and I was staring at a blank screen, my stylus hovering uselessly. That night, I paced the room, my socks sliding on the hardwood floor. The clock on my wall ticked relentlessly, 11:47 p.m. I'd brewed coffee, the mug steaming on my desk, but I couldn't sit still. My hands trembled slightly from the caffeine, or maybe the pressure. I flipped through my inspiration folder, old prints of Elena Voss's work, her fearless blends of chaos and clarity. Why can't I see it? I muttered to myself, clenching my fists until my nails bit into my palms. The concept was simple. Show the fragility of the planet through everyday objects. But every draft felt flat, preachy. I slumped into my chair, head in hands, elbows digging into the table. My breathing came in short bursts, the room feeling smaller, the walls pressing in. I thought about quitting, about calling it a hobby like they said. But then a spark, unbidden, from the depths of all those ignored achievements. What if I made it personal? Not abstract earth, but my world, fractured by neglect, pieced back with creativity. I grabbed my sketch pad, pencil flying across the page. Micro actions poured out. A cracked family photo frame morphing into a crumbling glacier, siblings' faces blurred in the ice, my own reflection sharp in a melting drop. No, too literal. I erased furiously, graphite smudging my fingers black. Try again, a dinner table, plates piled with pollution, forks stabbing at dying coral. Closer, but not there. I stood knocking over my coffee mug, hot liquid spilled across the desk, soaking papers. Damn it! I snatched tissues, dabbing frantically, but as I wiped, the ink on one sketch bled, colors running into a chaotic swirl, blues and greens merging like polluted waters, forms distorting into something raw, emotional. That's it. The bleed, the accident, mirroring how neglect seeps in, distorts, but can birth something new. My heart pounded as I transferred it to digital. I opened my software, cursor blinking expectantly. I layered the elements, a pristine landscape at first, then subtle cracks, family silhouettes in the shadows, ignored, fading. But the focal point, a key, ornate like the one Elena would give me later, unlocking a burst of vibrant renewal, colors exploding outward. Wait, where did the key come from? It just appeared in my mind, symbolic maybe, of escape. I didn't question it, my fingers flew over the keyboard adjusting hues, the mouse clicking rapidly. Sweat beaded on my forehead, but I didn't stop. Hours blurred. 1 a.m., 2 a.m. My back ached from hunching, eyes straining against the screen's glow. I zoomed in, tweaking pixels, each adjustment a small victory. Delete a line here, enhance contrast there. My breathing steadied, synced to the rhythm of creation. By 4 a.m., it was done. I leaned back, chair creaking, and stared at the final image, a world on the brink, saved by unlocking hidden potential. It wasn't just design, it was me, poured onto the canvas, my struggles, my triumphs, hidden from the family who'd never understand. I submitted it right then, fingers hovering over the send button before pressing down firmly. No fanfare, no sharing, this was mine. Days later, the acceptance email came, then the win announcement. I celebrated alone with takeout and a quiet toast to myself. The family? I mentioned the award vaguely, but kept the project's depth secret. Why give them ammunition to dismiss? This success was hidden, massive in its quiet power, proof I didn't need their validation. Back in the cab, the city streets whizzing by, that memory grounded me. The trophy in my lap gleamed under passing streetlights, a tangible echo of that night. I'd built something extraordinary in secret, turning pain into art. And now, with Elena's key, maybe I'd unlock more. The cab stopped at my building and I paid, stepping out into the dawn's first light. My apartment waited, sketches still scattered, but tonight I felt ready for whatever came next. The struggle had forged me. The success was my armor. I pushed open the door to my apartment, the familiar creak echoing in the quiet hallway, and flicked on the light. The space was just as I'd left it. Sketches pinned to the walls, my drafting table cluttered with markers and half-finished concepts, the faint smell of takeout lingering from dinner 2 nights ago. I kicked off my heels, the cool floor soothing my aching feet, and dropped my clutch on the counter with a soft thud. The trophy went next to it, catching the lamp's glow, but I couldn't look at it without feeling that twist in my gut. Instead, I sank onto the couch, the cushions sighing under me, and pulled the key from my pocket. It sat heavy in my palm, its intricate engravings catching the light. Swirls that looked like abstract designs, maybe a logo or symbol I didn't recognize. Elena's words replayed in my head. Find the collective, they're waiting. But before I could chase that mystery, the hurt from tonight demanded attention. My mind drifted back to yesterday, the eve of the gala, when I'd still held on to a sliver of hope that my family might show. That day had been a slow burn of dread, every moment laced with the fear they'd let me down again. It started in the morning, sunlight filtering through my blinds as I brewed coffee, the machine gurgling like it was mocking my nerves. I'd woken early, my stomach already knotted, and checked my phone first thing. No new messages in the group chat. I'd sent the reminder 2 days prior. Gala tomorrow night, seats reserved for you all, means a lot if you come. Mom had replied with, "We'll see," which in family code meant probably not. I set the mug down harder than needed, hot liquid sloshing over the rim, and wiped it up with a dish towel, my movements jerky. Why did I even bother? But deep down, I wanted them there, wanted to see pride in their eyes for once. I paced the kitchen, bare feet padding on the tile, and opened my closet to pull out the dress. Black, elegant, with a subtle shimmer I'd chosen to feel confident. I hung it on the door, smoothing the fabric with my hands, fingers lingering on the hem as if it could armor me against disappointment. By noon, I was at my desk, trying to distract myself with work, but my focus shattered every time my phone buzzed. It was just emails, congrats from colleagues on the nomination, but each notification made my heart jump, hoping for family. I clicked through designs absent-mindedly, the mouse wheel spinning under my thumb, but my mind was elsewhere. I remembered calling Mom around lunch. I dialed while stirring a salad, fork clinking against the bowl. She picked up on the third ring, her voice bright but distant. "Hey, sweetie, busy packing?" "Packing?" My grip tightened on the phone, knuckles whitening. "For what?" I asked, keeping my tone light. Oh, the lake house, last-minute deal on the rental. Jake and Lila are excited. I froze, salad forgotten, the fork dropping with a clatter. But the gala? Tomorrow. Silence, then a sigh. Audrey, it's just one event. You've had plenty. We'll celebrate when we get back. Plenty? I bit my lip, tasting blood, and leaned against the counter, my free hand clenching into a fist. It's the Pinnacle Award, Mom. This could change everything for me. She chuckled softly, like I was a kid exaggerating. You're always so dramatic about your art stuff. Jake's got that big client meeting next week. Real pressure there. I wanted to scream, but instead I mumbled, okay, and hung up, the phone slipping from my ear to the counter with a dull thunk. The afternoon dragged. I tried on the dress, zipping it up in front of the mirror, turning side to side. It fit perfectly, but my reflection looked haunted, eyes shadowed, shoulders slumped. I adjusted the neckline, fingers fumbling, and practiced my acceptance speech under my breath. Thank you to everyone who believed in me. But who had? Not them. I sat on the bed, the mattress dipping, and scrolled through old photos on my phone. Family holidays where I smiled in the background, Jake and Lila front and center. My thumb paused on one from last Christmas. All of us around the tree, their gifts practical and praised, mine a sketchbook they'd barely glanced at. I tossed the phone aside, watching it slide across the comforter, and rubbed my temples, pressure building behind my eyes. Why did I keep hoping? Their priorities were clear. Jake's corporate climbs, Lila's social events. My designs? Frivolous. I stood abruptly, pacing again, my steps quick and agitated, the floorboards creaking under me. Evening came and I forced myself to eat, pasta from the fridge, reheated in the microwave, the hum filling the silence. As I twirled noodles on my fork, not really tasting them, Dad texted, "Have fun at your thing, weather's great for the lake." No question, no apology. I stared at the screen, my fork hovering mid-air, sauce dripping back to the plate. I typed, "Thanks," deleted it, typed, "You could still come," deleted that too. Finally, I sent nothing, setting the phone face down with a deliberate press. The dread settled heavier, like a weight on my chest, making each breath shallower. I cleared the plate, rinsing it under the faucet, water splashing against my wrists, but my mind raced. What if they didn't show? Would I stand there alone, trophy in hand, feeling like a failure despite the win? I dried my hands on a towel, fabric rough against my skin, and hung it crookedly on the rack. Night fell and I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling fan spinning lazily. The sheets tangled around my legs as I tossed, unable to settle. I checked the group chat one last time. Lila had posted a packing emoji, Jake a thumbs up. Nothing for me. I clutched the pillow, fingers digging into the fabric, and closed my eyes, but sleep evaded me. Images flashed, empty seats, polite claps, my voice echoing hollow. The dread peaked around midnight. I sat up, heart pounding, and whispered to the dark room, "Why can't they just see me?" Tears came then, hot and silent, trailing down my cheeks. I wiped them away with the back of my hand, sniffling, and reached for a tissue, crumpling it in my fist. Eventually exhaustion won, but even in dreams the gala loomed, family faces blurred and turning away. Waking that morning of the gala day had been brutal, the dread carrying over like a hangover. But I'd pushed through, got ready, went. And they hadn't come. Back in the present, on my couch after it all, I twirled the key between my fingers, its metal warming to my touch. Yesterday's dread had been a prelude to tonight's reality, but this key, it felt like a turning point. Whatever the collective was, it promised something my family never gave, a chance to be seen. I set the key on the coffee table, its clink decisive, and stood, heading to bed. Tomorrow, I'd find out what it unlocked. No more dreading their approval. I was done. The morning light crept through my blinds, slicing across the bed in sharp lines that made me squint as I stirred awake. My head throbbed faintly from the wine and the emotional whirlwind of the night before, and I reached for my phone on the nightstand, my fingers brushing against the cool screen before gripping it. The key still sat on the coffee table in the living room, untouched since I'd placed it there, but for now it was pushed to the back of my mind. I unlocked the phone with a swipe, the familiar chime of notifications hitting me like a wave. There were dozens. Texts, social media alerts, all from the family group chat and their individual accounts. I sat up slowly, the sheets pooling around my waist, and propped myself against the headboard, my back pressing into the wooden slats. As I scrolled, The sting of their absence at the gala reignited, fresh and raw, amplified by the barrage of their vacation updates. It wasn't just that they'd skipped my night, it was how they flaunted their choice, rubbing salt in the wound with every post and message, their disdain dripping through in backhanded ways that made my chest tighten. The first thing I saw was Mom's post on her feed, a photo of the lake house at dawn, mist rising off the water, captioned, "Nothing beats family time, blessed lake life." No mention of me, of course. I tapped into the group chat, my thumb hovering before pressing, and the messages loaded in a flood. Jake had started it around midnight, probably while I was still at the gala feeling like a fool. "Just arrived. Place is epic. Audrey, you should have ditched that work thing and come." I stared at the words, my jaw clenching involuntarily, teeth grinding together. Ditched? Like my award was some optional meeting. I scrolled up, seeing Lila's reply. "Totally. But hey, congrats on whatever that was last night. Send pics of the trophy or something." Whatever that was. My fingers tightened around the phone, the edges digging into my palm as I felt heat rise in my face. It was the Pinnacle Award, not whatever. But that's how they saw it, trivial, dismissible. Dad chimed in next, his message popping up as I read. "Good to get away from the city chaos. Audrey, hope you had fun at your event. Don't work too hard." Fun? I let out a short, bitter laugh that echoed in the empty room, but it caught in my throat like a sob. I set the phone down for a second, rubbing my eyes with the heels of my hands, pressing hard enough to see stars. The trophy sat on the counter, mocking me in the morning light. Its glass surface fingerprint smudged from my handling last night. I picked up the phone again, unable to stop, like picking at a scab. More photos loaded, Jake posing by the dock with a fishing rod, grinning wide, caption, "Real relaxation, beats sitting in a stuffy room all night." The implication hit like a slap. He meant my gala, the stuffy room where I'd stood alone on stage. My stomach churned and I shifted on the bed, pulling my knees up to my chest, arms wrapping around them as if to hold myself together. Lila sent a video next, her laughter tinny through the speaker as I played it. She panned the camera around the cabin interior, cozy fireplace, board games on the table, then to Mom and Dad lounging on the porch. "Wish you were here, Aud, but you probably needed the alone time after all that creative stress." She air-quoted with her fingers, her tone light but laced with that familiar condescension. Creative stress, like my career was some fragile hobby that exhausted me unnecessarily. I paused the video, her frozen smile staring back, and felt my nails dig into my shins through the sheets. Why did it always come wrapped in these backhanded jabs? Congrats, or, good job though. Never just pride. I replied impulsively, typing with shaky thumbs. It was the biggest night of my career. Thanks for the support. Sent. Regretted it immediately. The chat went silent for a minute, then the typing bubbles appeared. Mom first. "Oh honey, don't be like that. We needed this trip. Your dad's been stressed at work and Jake's got that promotion coming. Your thing sounded fun, but family first, right?" Family first. Except when it was my turn. I bit my lip, tasting the metallic tang again, and avoided looking at the screen, staring instead at a crack in the wall plaster. Dad added, "Yeah, Audrey, lighten up. Send us a pic of the award, we'll toast to it here." A toast from afar? While they sipped drinks by the lake. Jake jumped in. "Seriously sis, it's not a big deal. Leela's got her bar association dinner next month. That's black tie mandatory." The comparison. Always. I scrolled faster, my finger swiping up harshly, the screen blurring slightly. More photos, them in swimsuits, splashing in the water, hashtags like #familybonding, no drama. Each one twisted the knife deeper, their joy contrasting my isolation last night. I dropped the phone onto the mattress, watching it bounce once, and stood up, my legs wobbly as I paced the room. The floor was cold under my feet, sending a shiver up my spine, but I kept moving, arms crossed tightly over my chest. How could they be so oblivious? Or was it deliberate, this way of diminishing me? I stopped at the window, parting the blinds with 2 fingers, peering out at the bustling street below. People hurrying to work, cars honking. My reflection in the glass looked tired, eyes puffy. Back to the phone, another message from Lila. "Odd, seriously, get over it. We're having a blast, join next time instead of those artsy events." Artsy events. My fists clenched at my sides, nails pressing into palms, leaving half-moon marks. It wasn't just absence, It was this casual erasure, like my achievement was a footnote to their lives. The barrage continued as I made coffee, the machine hissing steam while notifications pinged relentlessly. I leaned against the counter, mug in hand, sipping the hot liquid that burned my tongue but grounded me. Jake sent a meme about workaholics missing out, tagged me. Mom followed with, "Proud of you always, but vacations heal the soul." Proud always, except when it counted. I didn't reply this time, just read and let the words sink in, each one a small jab building to a profound ache. My vacation choice, their words, their images made the gala's empty seats feel even emptier in retrospect. I'd stood there, smiling through it, but now, alone in my kitchen, the disdain hit full force. They weren't just absent, they were actively choosing to belittle what mattered to me. By mid-morning I'd muted the chat, the phone vibrating silently on the counter as I sat at my table, staring at the key. Their cold disdain had crystallized something in me. The vacation wasn't an accident. It was a statement. I picked up the key, turning it over in my fingers, the metal warming. Elena's words echoed, "You're meant for more." Maybe she was right. The sting lingered, but it fueled a quiet resolve. I wouldn't endure this forever. With the key still in my hand, its edges pressing into my skin like a persistent reminder, I walked over to the window again, staring out at the city awakening below. Cars crawled along the streets, horns blaring faintly, people hurrying with coffee cups in hand. My reflection stared back, pale and determined, the phone's muted vibrations, a distant buzz on the counter. The family's messages had solidified it. They weren't just absent, they were willfully blind to my world. But this key, this unexpected gift from Elena Voss, it pulled my thoughts back to the gala, to that brief but electric moment when she'd approached me. I hadn't processed it fully last night, too raw from the abandonment, but now, in the quiet of my apartment, I let myself relive it. The conversation that had shifted everything, her words lingering like a promise. I closed my eyes, leaning my forehead against the cool glass, and replayed every detail, every micro-gesture, as if dissecting a design proof for flaws. It had happened right after I'd returned to my table, the trophy placed down with a soft clink, my hands still trembling slightly from the stage lights and the empty seats. The room hummed with conversations, glasses tinkling, laughter rising in waves. I was sipping my wine, the stem slippery in my grip, when I felt a presence. Someone standing just behind my chair. I turned, my dress rustling against the seat, and there she was. Elena Voss, in a tailored suit that screamed effortless authority, her silver hair swept back, a single strand falling loose over her forehead. She was shorter than I'd imagined, but her posture made her seem towering. Her eyes, sharp and gray, locked onto mine immediately, no hesitation. "Audrey," she said. Not a question but a statement, her voice low and gravely, like she'd smoked a pack a day in her youth. I nodded, my mouth dry, setting the glass down too quickly. It wobbled but didn't tip. "Yes, that's me." My voice came out steadier than I felt, but my fingers twisted the napkin in my lap, fabric bunching under my nails. She pulled out the chair next to me without asking, sitting with a graceful ease, her hands folding on the table. Long fingers, dotted with faint ink stains, rings absent except for one simple band. "I saw your work tonight, the environmental piece, bold, raw, it cut through the noise." Her gaze didn't waver, but she tilted her head slightly, as if assessing my reaction. I blinked, heat flushing my cheeks, and shifted in my seat, uncrossing my legs only to cross them again. "Thank you, coming from you. That's everything." I meant it. Her campaigns had inspired my entire portfolio. She smiled then, a small curve of her lips, not full but genuine, revealing a slight gap between her front teeth. "Don't thank me yet, I've been watching your trajectory. Freelance gigs, that viral logo last year. You're talented but you're holding back. Why?" Her question was direct, no preamble, her eyebrow arching just a fraction. I hesitated, glancing around the room, strangers networking, no one paying us attention. My family flashed in my mind, their texts about the vacation already burning in my pocket from earlier checks. "Family," I admitted, my voice dropping. "They don't get it. Tonight they skipped this for a trip, said it's just an award." I avoided her eyes, staring at my hands instead, picking at a cuticle until it stung. Elena leaned in closer, her chair scraping faintly on the floor. The scent of her perfume, something citrusy and sharp, wafting over. "Ah, the classic. They celebrate the safe paths, ignore the creators." She nodded slowly, her fingers drumming once on the table, a rhythmic tap tap tap. I know that story. Mine disowned me after my first big risk flopped, but that's when I found my real kin. Her tone softened, but her eyes intensified, boring into me like she was seeing past the facade. I looked up then, meeting her gaze, my breath. Real kin? She reached into her jacket pocket, movements deliberate, and pulled out the key, brass, ornate, with engravings that swirled like abstract vines. She placed it on the table between us, sliding it toward me with one finger, the metal scraping softly against the cloth. The collective, a hidden network of us, designers, artists, visionaries who've been overlooked by blood ties. We support each other, collaborate, thrive. No judgments, just acceptance. I stared at the key, my hand hovering before picking it up, the weight surprising, cool against my palm. How do I trailed off, closing my fingers around it, the edges biting slightly. Elena stood then, pushing her chair back with a quiet screech, her hand briefly resting on my shoulder. Firm, reassuring. Follow the symbol, it's in the city, hidden in plain sight. When you find the door, the key fits. They're waiting for someone like you. She squeezed once, then released, her touch lingering like warmth. Don't wait for their approval, Audrey. Claim your own. With that she turned, weaving through the crowd, her silver hair catching the lights until she vanished. Back in my apartment, my forehead still against the window, the memory faded, but the key in my hand felt alive now, charged with possibility. I'd been too stunned last night to probe deeper, but her words echoed, real kin, acceptance. My family's disdain via those messages paled against this invitation. I straightened, pushing away from the glass, my reflection sharpening. The conversation with Elena wasn't just a chance meeting, it was a door cracking open. I slipped the key into my jeans pocket, the fabric bulging slightly, and grabbed my laptop from the desk, keys clacking as I opened it. Time to research the collective, follow the symbol. Whatever this led to, it beat wallowing in their neglect. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, then began typing, the clicks filling the room. This was my path now. My fingers danced across the keyboard, the rapid clicks filling the otherwise silent apartment as I typed the collective design community into the search bar. The screen glowed back at me, results loading in a blink, articles on various art groups, but nothing that matched the intrigue of Elena's whisper. I leaned closer, chair creaking under me, my elbow bumping a stack of sketch pads that teetered but didn't fall. The key lay beside the laptop, its engraving seeming to shift under the desk lamp's light. I picked it up again, turning it slowly between my thumb and forefinger, feeling the subtle grooves like braille, telling a secret story. Elena had said, follow the symbol, so I zoomed in on the key's design, a stylized swirl that looked like interlocking brushes or perhaps abstract faces merging. I snapped a photo with my phone, the camera shutter sound crisp, and uploaded it to an image search. Hits came back. Nothing direct, but one link to an obscure forum post about hidden creative hubs in the city. My pulse quickened, a faint thrum in my ears as I clicked through. The forum was niche, buried in design subreddits with users trading tips on underground events. One post caught my eye. Anyone heard of the collective? Symbol looks like this, attached image, rumored spot for pros only. The attached was a rough sketch matching my key. Comments were sparse. Invite only, super exclusive. Heard it's in the old warehouse district. Key access, literal key. I sat back, exhaling slowly, my breath fogging the screen slightly. Warehouse district. That was a start. I mapped it on my phone, pins dropping like clues in a treasure hunt. It was a 20-minute walk from here, through gritty streets I'd avoided after dark. But the pull was magnetic. My family's snubs still echoed in my head, their vacation bliss a stark contrast to my solitude. I stood, chair scraping the floor, and grabbed my jacket from the hook, the fabric rustling as I shrugged it on. Sneakers next, lacing them tight with quick pulls, the strings whispering against the eyelets. Key in pocket, phone in hand, I locked the door behind me, the deadbolt clicking into place. The streets were alive with midday bustle, vendors hawking coffee, cars honking impatiently, pedestrians weaving like threads in a loom. I walked briskly, my steps echoing off brick buildings, the key jingling faintly with each stride. My mind raced ahead. What if this was a hoax? Or worse, some scam? But Elena's face flashed, serious, knowing. No, this felt real. The warehouse district loomed as I turned a corner, Abandoned buildings with graffiti tags, windows boarded like closed eyes. I scanned for the symbol, eyes darting from wall to wall, my neck craning slightly. There, on a rusted door, faded but unmistakable, the swirl etched in chalk or paint. My heart skipped, a quick stutter, and I approached, hand outstretched. The door was heavy, metal cool under my palm as I pushed. It didn't budge. The keyhole was subtle, hidden in the symbol's center. I inserted the key, metal scraping metal, and turned. A soft click, then the door swung inward with a groan, revealing a dim corridor. Inside the air was cooler, scented with paint and coffee. I stepped through, door closing behind me with a thud that made me jump, my hand flying to my chest. Lights flickered on automatically, motion sensors humming to life, illuminating a narrow hall lined with murals, vibrant designs that flowed like stories untold. My fingers trailed the wall, feeling the textured paint, rough and alive. At the end, another door, this one glass, frosted with the symbol. I pushed it open, hinges silent, and entered a vast space. High ceilings, exposed beams, tables scattered with laptops and sketchbooks, people huddled in groups, voices murmuring in excited tones. It was a hive of creativity. Designers hunched over tablets, stylists scratching screens, artists mixing palettes, brushes dipping with wet slaps, a corner with 3D printers whirring softly. No one looked up at first, but then a woman near the entrance turned. Mid-40s, with wild curly hair tied back, glasses perched on her nose. "New face," she said, wiping her hands on an apron smeared with ink, the fabric crinkling. "Key?" I nodded, holding it up, light catching its surface. She smiled, wide and warm, extending a hand, calloused, strong grip. "I'm Mara, welcome to the collective. Elena send you?" My nod again, words catching in my throat. She led me in, arm gesturing broadly, her steps light on the concrete floor. "We're off the grid, invite only. Creatives who've been sidelined by families, industries, whatever. Here, we build each other up." We stopped at a communal table where a few others paused their work. A guy with tattoos snaking up his arms set down his coffee mug, ceramic clinking. "I'm Theo, illustrator. What's your story?" I hesitated, perching on a stool, wood creaking under me. "Graphic designer. Just won the Pinnacle Award last night. Family skipped it for a vacation." Murmurs of understanding rippled. Nods, empathetic eyes. A woman across Lena leaned forward, her necklace dangling. "Mine disowned me after I quit law for sculpture. This place saved me." They shared snippets. Projects collaborated on, successes amplified. Mara fetched me coffee, steam rising as she poured, the aroma grounding. I sipped, mug warm in my hands, fingers wrapping tightly. Theo showed his tablet, designs I'd admired online. We critique honestly but kindly, no egos. As we talked, more joined, pulling chairs with scrapes, forming a circle. Stories flowed. One lost a job to nepotism, another ignored by parents favoring real careers. Each tale mirrored mine, their voices overlapping in a comforting cadence. I shared more. The award details, family dynamics. They listened, heads tilting, no interruptions. Lena patted my arm, touch light. "You're home now." The words hit deep. Tears pricked, but I blinked them back, lashes fluttering. Hours blurred. Someone handed me a sketch pad, pencil rolling into my palm. I doodled absent-mindedly, lines flowing freely while discussions sparked ideas. A printer beeped in the background, outputting prototypes. Mara explained the setup, shared resources, mentorships, even funding pools. No dues, just contribute your talent. I felt seen, truly, for my work, not despite it. As the group dispersed back to tasks, whispers and laughs trailing, Theo clapped my shoulder. "Stay as long as you want, door's always open with that key." I nodded, pocketing it again, the weight now reassuring. Leaving later, sun dipping low, I walked home lighter, steps buoyant. The collective wasn't just a place, it was the embrace I'd craved, arms wide where my families had been crossed. The sun had dipped below the skyline by the time I reached my apartment building, casting long shadows that stretched across the sidewalk, like fingers reaching out. My steps were lighter, almost buoyant, as I climbed the stairs, the key now a comforting weight in my pocket rather than a mystery. The collective's energy still buzzed in my veins, the murmurs of collaboration, the scent of fresh paint, the way Mara's smile had welcomed me without question. I unlocked my door, the familiar jingle of my keys grounding me, and stepped inside, shrugging off my jacket to hang it on the hook with a soft rustle. The space felt different now, less empty, as if the day's discovery had filled some void. I sank onto the couch, cushions dipping under me, and pulled out my phone, but instead of checking the muted family chat, I replayed the deeper connections I'd formed at the collective. It wasn't just a quick tour. As the afternoon unfolded, conversations had woven into something profound, bonds forming in real time that made me feel truly seen for the first. It started when Mara pulled me aside after the initial introductions, her hand gently on my elbow, guiding me to a quieter corner of the warehouse where beanbags were scattered around a low table littered with design magazines and half-empty mugs. "Tell me more about your award piece," she said, settling into a bag with a whoosh of air escaping the fabric, her legs crossing casually. I hesitated, perching on the edge of another, my hands clasping in my lap, fingers interlacing tightly. "It's an environmental campaign, fractured landscapes healing through creative unlocks." She nodded, leaning forward, her elbows on her knees, eyes intent behind her glasses. "Sounds personal. What's the story behind it?" Her question was open. No judgment, just curiosity. I took a breath, the air cool in my lungs, and opened up about the family's dismissals, how each snub had cracked something in me, but I'd channeled it into the design. My voice started shaky, words tumbling out, but as I spoke, my hands unclenched, gesturing to illustrate the layers I'd built digitally. Mara listened, her head tilting slightly, a small hum of acknowledgement here and there, her fingers absently tracing the rim of a mug. When I finished, she reached over, patting my knee once. Firm, reassuring. "That's why this place exists. I was like you, corporate job, family pushing stability, quit to freelance, got the cold shoulder, found the collective through a mentor like Elena." Her story mirrored mine, details spilling, holidays alone, achievements glossed over. I felt a knot loosen in my chest, my shoulders relaxing against the beanbag. Theo joined us then, dragging a stool over with a metallic scrape, his tattooed arms flexing as he sat. Overheard. My turn. Parents wanted doctor, got illustrator instead. Disinvited from family events after my first gallery flop. He chuckled, but his eyes darkened briefly, hand rubbing the back of his neck. We traded tales, laughter mixing with sighs, the circle growing as Lena and others wandered in, pulling up spots on the floor or perching on arms. Lena shared next, her voice soft but steady, twisting her necklace chain around her finger as she spoke. "Sculptor here. Family's all lawyers. Think Lila, but worse. They called my art a phase until I sold a piece for 5 figures. Even then, when's the real career?" Nods rippled around, my own head bobbing in recognition, a small smile tugging at my lips. I chimed in with specifics. The lake house texts, Jake's memes belittling my gala. "It's like I'm invisible unless I fit their mold." Theo snapped his fingers, pointing at me. "Exactly. Here, we see you. Let's collab. Your graphics on my illus." The offer was casual but sincere, his eyes lighting up. We brainstormed right there, sketches emerging on napkins, my stylus ideas blending with his bold lines. My pencil scratched paper, quick strokes forming concepts, while others tossed suggestions, voices overlapping in excitement. As the group deepened, micro-moments built the bond. Mara fetching water for me, glass clinking as she set it down, noticing my dry throat mid-story. Lena sharing her sketchbook, pages flipping with a whisper, pointing to a sculpture inspired by rejection. "This one's my family fracture, see the cracks?" I traced them with a finger, the paper smooth under my touch. Theo high-fived me after a shared laugh, palm slapping mine with a sting that felt affirming. Conversations flowed, professional tips like software hacks I'd never tried, to personal vulnerabilities like holidays spent solo. "Last Christmas, I volunteered here instead," Mara said, her apron pocket crinkling as she pulled out a photo on her phone. Group around a makeshift tree, smiles genuine. I scrolled through it, thumb swiping gently, envy turning to hope. "I want that," I admitted, voice barely above a whisper. They enveloped me then, literal hugs, arms wrapping briefly, scents of coffee and ink mingling. By late afternoon we'd moved to a project wall, pinning ideas with thumbtacks that thunked into corkboard. I contributed a quick digital mock-up on my phone, screen glowing as I passed it around, fingers brushing in handover. Feedback was kind but constructive. "Amp the contrast here," Theo suggested, finger tapping the screen. I adjusted on the spot, the group watching, murmurs of approval. It felt collaborative, not competitive, no eye rolls like with my siblings, just support. As people drifted to tasks, promises hung. "Meet tomorrow? Share your portfolio link. I exchanged contacts, phones beeping with ads, my fingers typing numbers swiftly. Leaving, hugs again, Mara's lingering, her hand squeezing my shoulder. You're one of us now. Walking out, door clicking shut, the acceptance settled deep, a warmth spreading from my chest. Back on my couch now, that warmth lingered, chasing away the chill of family texts. I'd found allies who valued me, not for conforming, but for creating. My phone buzzed once, a welcome message from Theo. Glad you're in. I smiled, setting it down softly. The collective wasn't just a community, it was the family I'd craved, bonds forged in shared understanding. Tomorrow I'd dive deeper, but tonight I savored the shift, from overlooked to embraced. The warmth from that afternoon at the collective carried me through the evening, a quiet glow that made my apartment feel less like a solitary refuge and more like a temporary stop before something bigger. I cooked a simple dinner, pasta boiling on the stove, steam rising to fog the window, as I texted Theo back. Definitely in. See you tomorrow. His reply came quick, a thumbs-up emoji followed by, bring ideas. I smiled at the screen, setting it down with a soft click on the counter, my fingers lingering for a second. But as I twirled the noodles onto my fork, the contrast hit me hard. This budding sense of belonging versus the toxic undercurrents of my biological family. It crystallized in my mind during a late-night scroll through old photos, but the real juxtaposition came the next day, in a single heartfelt gathering at the collective that highlighted everything my family lacked. A moment of pure, unforced connection that made their dynamics feel even more poisonous by comparison. I arrived mid-morning, the warehouse door creaking open under my push, the key turning smoothly in the lock like it belonged there now. The space was alive already, low hum of printers, clatter of keyboards, scent of fresh coffee brewing in the corner. Mara spotted me first, waving from across the room, her apron tied loosely, a streak of blue paint on her cheek. Audrey? Perfect timing, we're doing a share circle. She beckoned me over, her steps quick as she crossed the floor, hugging me briefly, arms wrapping firm, a pat on the back that felt maternal without the baggage. I followed her to the central area, where cushions and chairs formed a loose ring, about a dozen people settling in, mugs in hands, sketchbooks on laps. Theo scooted over on a worn couch, patting the spot next to him, his grin wide. Saved you a seat. I sat, the fabric sinking under me, my bag dropping to the floor with a thud. Mara kicked it off, sitting cross-legged on a pillow, her hands gesturing animatedly. Today's theme, breakthroughs born from pain. Who wants to start? Silence for a beat, then Lena raised her hand tentatively, twisting her necklace as she spoke. Mine's recent. Family reunion last month. They grilled me on why I'm wasting my law degree on clay. Said my sculptures are cute hobbies. Came here right after, sculpted all night, sold that piece the next week. Murmurs of support rippled, nods a few, hell yes. Theo squeezed my shoulder lightly, his touch encouraging. Someone passed a plate of muffins around. I took one, crumbling a bit onto my napkin, the sweetness bursting on my tongue as I chewed slowly. The stories flowed. A guy named Raj shared how his parents favored his brother's engineering job, ignoring his animation wins, until he animated a short film here that went viral. They called to congratulate, but I didn't need it anymore. His voice cracked slightly, fist clenching on his knee, but the group leaned in, eyes soft. When it circled to me, my heart thudded, palms dampening. I wiped them on my jeans, fabric rough under my fingers. My family's always prioritized my siblings, Jake's promotions, Lila's cases, skipped my award gala for a vacation. Texts were all, get over it. I paused, voice wavering, staring at the floor's concrete cracks. Theo nudged me gently, elbow to elbow. But here, yesterday felt like what family's supposed to be. Mara smiled, her glasses slipping down her nose. She pushed them up with one finger. That's it, Audrey, we choose each other. The circle erupted softly, claps, snaps, someone saying, welcome home. Lena reached across, handing me a tissue from her bag, though I wasn't crying yet. I took it, crumpling it in my fist, the paper soft. The sharing deepened. Mara confessed her own estrangement, voice steady but eyes glistening. Mom stopped calling after I chose design over their business, but this circle, it's my anchor. We linked hands then, a spontaneous thing, fingers interlacing, palms pressing, a chain of warmth circling the group. Theo's hand was calloused from drawing, Lena's cool and steady. We sat like that for a minute, breathing in sync, the room's ambient noises fading. Breaking apart, conversations splintered into pairs. Theo turned to me, eyes earnest. Your environmental piece, inspired by that neglect? I nodded, detailing the bleed effect from the spilled coffee, how it mirrored emotional seepage. He listened, head cocked, jotting notes on his phone, screen glowing faintly. Let's co-create something similar, your graphics, my characters. Excitement bubbled. I pulled out my sketch pad, pencil scratching quick lines, our heads bent close, shoulders brushing. Others shared artifacts. Raj passed around his phone, video playing with tinny sound, his animation vibrant and poignant. I watched, finger scrolling to pause on frames, admiring the fluidity. Compliments flew. That's raw power, Mara said, her thumbs up emphatic. No backhanded barbs, no comparisons, just uplift. Contrast hit like waves. Flashbacks to family dinners, where Jake's stories dominated, my inputs met with eye rolls or, that's nice but... Here, when I shared a design flaw I'd overcome, the group probed gently. How'd you fix the color balance? Hands gesturing, faces engaged. No one checked watches like Mom did, no smirks like Lila's. Instead, Lena offered, I have a tool for that, let me show you. She demoed on her tablet, stylus tapping, our screens side by side. As the circle wound down, we migrated to the kitchenette. Coffee poured, mugs clinking, laughter echoing off beams. Theo brewed a fresh pot, steam curling up, while Mara sliced fruit, knife thunking on the board. We chatted casually. Weekend plans here meant collabs, not exclusions. Join our mural project Sunday? Lena asked, apple slice extended on her palm. I accepted, biting into the crispness, juice dribbling slightly. I wiped my chin with a napkin. The toxicity of my family dinners, tense silences, forced smiles felt distant, poisonous in memory. There, gratitude was conditional. Here it flowed freely. Someone hugged me goodbye as I left. Mara again, whispering, You're shining already. Door closing behind me, the click resonant. I walked home with that warmth wrapped around me like a shield. The heartfelt moment wasn't grand, just sharing, listening, connecting, but it starkly contrasted the family's venom. Their dismissals like acid, eroding self-worth. The collective built it back, brick by heartfelt brick. My phone buzzed, a collective group chat invite. I joined, smiling at the welcome emojis. Family toxicity? It paled against this chosen warmth. That group chat invite from the collective pinged again as I settled into my evening routine, a flurry of messages popping up, ideas for collaborations, quick sketches shared, even a meme about creative chaos that made me chuckle out loud. I thumbed through them, my back against the couch cushions, legs tucked under me, the phone's glow lighting my face in the dim room. It was effortless connection, no underlying judgments, just shared passion. But as the night wore on, my thoughts circled back to the source of my pain. The biological family whose toxicity I'd contrasted so sharply with this new warmth. The next weekend, when they returned from the lake house, tanned and full of stories, I knew it was time. Armed with the strength from the collective's embrace, I arranged a confrontation, not a blowout, but a deliberate stand to set boundaries that would protect my peace. It happened over a tense coffee meetup at a neutral cafe downtown, where I laid it all out, my voice steady, hands firm around my mug, establishing lines they couldn't cross anymore. I'd texted Mom midweek, we need to talk, cafe on Elm, Saturday at 10. Her reply was chipper, can't wait to catch up, with emojis that felt forced. I arrived early, choosing a corner table by the window, the morning sun slanting in and warming the wooden surface. I ordered black coffee, the barista's machine hissing steam as she poured, and stirred it slowly, spoon clinking against the ceramic. My heart pounded, but not with the old dread. This was resolve, that built from those circle shares at the collective where I'd heard others recount similar stands. Theo's words echoed, boundaries aren't walls, they're doors you control. I straightened my posture, shoulders back, as they walked in. Mom first, purse slung over her arm, Dad trailing with his phone in hand, Jake and Lila chatting behind. They spotted me, waving casually, but I saw the flicker in Mom's eyes, maybe sensing something off. They settled in, chairs scraping the floor, ordering lattes and pastries that arrived flaky and steaming. Mom started with small talk, leaning forward, her hands folding on the table. The lake was divine, water so clear, you missed out. Jake nodded, biting into a croissant, crumbs scattering. Yeah, Aud, next time ditch the work stuff. I let them chatter for a minute, sipping my coffee, the bitterness matching my mood, my free hand under the table clenching the napkin into a ball. Then, when Lila piped in with, "Show us pics of that award thing," I set my mug down firmly, the thud cutting through their words. "Actually, that's why we're here. The award thing was the pinnacle, a huge deal for me. You all chose a vacation over it. That hurt, deeply." Silence fell, forks pausing midair, eyes widening slightly. Dad shifted, clearing his throat, his fingers drumming the table edge. "Audrey, we said sorry, it was last minute." I met his gaze, unblinking, my jaw set. "Sorry doesn't erase the pattern. You've ignored my achievements for years. Art contests, internships, now this. Jake's promotions get parties, Lila's wins get trips. Mine? Dismissed as artsy." Mom reached out, her hand hovering before touching mine. I pulled back slightly, palm flat on the table now. "Honey, we celebrate everyone, you're too sensitive." Sensitive. The word stung, but I breathed through it, chest rising steadily. "No, Mom, it's not sensitivity, it's neglect. I've bent over backward for approval that never comes. That ends now." Jake leaned back, arms crossing, a smirk tugging his lips. "Come on, dramatic much? It's just family." I turned to him, voice even. "Family should support, not belittle. From now on, boundaries. I won't discuss my work if you're going to diminish it. No more group chats where my news gets buried under yours. And if you skip my milestones again, don't expect me at yours." Leela's eyes narrowed, stirring her coffee vigorously, spoon scraping the cup. "So you're cutting us off? Over one trip?" I shook my head, fingers tracing the mug's handle, the ceramic warm. "Not cutting off, protecting myself. I'll be there for holidays, but on my terms. No more pretending everything's fine when it's not." Dad sighed, rubbing his temple, elbow on the table. "Audrey, we're proud, but life gets busy. Jake's job, Leela's cases." There it was, the comparison again. I interrupted gently but firmly. "See, even now it's about them. My career matters too. I've found people who see that, a community that celebrates me without conditions." Mom's face softened, but with a hint of hurt, her lips pressing thin. "What community? Strangers over blood?" I nodded, unflinching. "Chosen family, yes, they showed up when you didn't. This isn't revenge, it's self-care." The conversation stretched, their reactions cycling. Defensiveness from Jake, who fidgeted with his napkin, tearing small pieces. Placating from Mom, her hands gesturing pleadingly. Quiet from Dad, staring into his cup. Eye rolls from Lila, phone checked discreetly under the table. I held ground, repeating boundaries when they pushed. "If you mock my designs, the call ends. No unannounced visits, respect my space." Each statement came clear, my voice gaining strength, backed by mental flashes of the collective support. Mara's nod, Theo's high five. "They tried guilt, we've always been there," Mom said, voice cracking slightly. I countered softly, "In body, maybe, but not in spirit." Pastry plates emptied, coffee cooled, and eventually resignation set in. Dad nodded first. "Okay, we'll try." Jake mumbled agreement, avoiding my eyes. Lila shrugged, but her posture slumped. As we wrapped up, standing with chair pushes and purse grabs, Mom hugged me tentatively. I returned it briefly, arms loose. "We love you," she whispered. "I know," I replied, stepping back, "but love needs action." They left in a cluster, voices low as they exited, doorbell jingling. I stayed seated, exhaling long, the cafe's hum resuming around me, espresso grinding, chatter blending. My hands trembled slightly now, adrenaline fading, but pride swelled. I'd confronted without screaming, set boundaries unshakable as the collective's foundation. No tears, just clarity. Paying the bill, coins clinking into the tip jar, I walked out into the sun, steps purposeful. The confrontation wasn't explosive but transformative, my strength, newfound and firm, redrawing the lines of our dynamic forever. The cafe's doorbell jingled faintly as I watched my family walk away down the sidewalk, their figures shrinking in the distance, Mom's purse swinging, Dad's hands in his pockets, Jake and Lila murmuring to each other. I lingered at the table a moment longer, tracing the rim of my empty mug with my fingertip, the ceramic smooth and cooling under my touch. The confrontation had left me drained but empowered, like I'd shed a heavy coat I'd worn too long. Boundaries set, I stepped out into the bustling street, the sun warming my face, cars whooshing by, and headed straight to the collective. The warehouse door opened with its familiar creak as I turned the key, and inside the hum of creativity welcomed me like an old friend. That afternoon, inspired by the stand I'd taken, I dove into a new project. one that would leverage my Pinnacle Award success to mentor emerging designers overlooked like I had been, turning my personal triumph into a ripple of positive change that redefined what my family name could mean, on my terms alone. Mara was at the communal table when I arrived, hunched over a laptop, her fingers tapping keys rhythmically. She looked up, pushing her glasses higher on her nose, a smile breaking across her face. "Back so soon? How'd the talk go?" I pulled up a stool beside her, the metal legs scraping the concrete floor, and set my bag down with a soft thud. "Tense, but done. Boundaries are in place." She nodded knowingly, closing her laptop with a click, her hands folding on top. "Good for you. Now, channel that energy. What's next?" I exhaled, leaning my elbows on the table, wood grain pressing into my skin. The award had opened doors, emails from agencies, collaboration invites, but I wanted more than personal gain. I want to start a mentorship program here, for creatives from unsupportive families. Use my win to spotlight them, maybe a showcase event. Mara's eyes lit up, her chair shifting as she turned fully toward me. "Brilliant. We've got the space, let's build it." We brainstormed right there, sketches emerging on scrap paper, my pencil scratching quick outlines of event layouts, Mara's marker adding bold arrows for flow. Theo wandered over, coffee mug in hand, steam curling up, and peered at our notes. "Mentorship? Count me in, I could teach illustration basics." His free hand gestured animatedly, nearly spilling his drink. I steadied the mug with a light touch, laughing softly. Others joined gradually. Lena with her sculpting insights, Raj offering animation tips. The table filled, chairs dragged closer with scrapes, voices layering in excitement. I detailed my vision. Pair mentors with mentees based on shared experiences of neglect, culminate in a public exhibit where their work shines. "It's about reclaiming legacy," I said, my voice firm, pen pausing mid-stroke. "My family name, it's always been about Jake's deals or Lila's wins. Now it'll stand for uplifting others." Nods rippled. Theo clapping my back lightly, his palm warm through my shirt. By mid-afternoon, we'd outlined the program. Applications via the collective's discrete network, sessions twice weekly. I volunteered to lead the first workshop, drawing from my award project. Mara fetched a whiteboard from the corner, wheels squeaking as she rolled it over, and we mapped timelines. Dry erase markers squeaking on the surface, my hand writing, week 1, sharing stories in blue. As we worked, micro moments built momentum, Lena erasing a line with her sleeve, fabric smudging ink, Raj typing notes on his phone, screen tapping softly, Theo doodling logos in the margins, pencil shading lightly. The energy was palpable, a far cry from family meetings where ideas got shot down. Here suggestions flowed. Add portfolio reviews, guest speakers like Elena? Each met with yes and, instead of, but why? I reached out to Elena that evening via email, fingers hovering over the send button before pressing, the whoosh sound confirming. "Mentorship program inspired by you. Join as advisor?" Her reply came quick. "Honored. Let's meet." The next day she arrived at the collective, her silver hair catching the overhead lights as she strode in, hugging me briefly, arms strong, perfume citrusy. We sat in the quiet corner with bean bags, fabric whooshing as we sank in. "Your award's a platform," she said, her fingers interlacing in her lap. "Use it to amplify voices like yours were silenced." I nodded, pulling out my notebook, pages flipping to a fresh one. We refined the program, curriculum on resilience in design, funding from her contacts. Her input was gold. Focus on emotional tools, not just technical. Her pen underlining points decisively. Applications trickled in over weeks. Emails pinging my inbox, stories mirroring mine, ignored talents, though family favoritism. I reviewed them at home, laptop on my knees, cursor scrolling through PDFs. Selected 10 mentees, diverse in mediums but united in backstory. The first session was electric. We gathered in the circle, cushions arranged, my hands arranging them into a perfect ring. I started, sharing my gala snub, voice steady but throat tightening slightly. "This program's my legacy, proof creativity thrives despite neglect." Mentees opened up, a young painter, fidgeting with her bracelet, beads clicking. A digital artist avoiding eye contact at first, then meeting mine. We paired them with mentors, me taking 2, guiding their projects with late-night Zooms, screen-sharing designs, mouse clicks echoing. The showcase event came months later, the warehouse transformed. Spotlights rigged, humming softly, walls hung with art, hooks clinking as we adjusted. My family's name? I branded it subtly, Audrey Hale Mentorship Exhibit, reclaiming Hale from their conventional mold. Invites went wide, but not to them, this was mine. Opening night, doors open to a crowd, colleagues, Elena's network. I stood at the entrance, dress hugging my frame, greeting guests with handshakes, palms clasping firmly. Mentees beamed beside their works, the painter's canvas drawing gasps, her brushstrokes bold, the digital artist's installation buzzing with interactive lights. Elena toasted me privately, glass clinking mine. You've created impact. Pride swelled, my chest expanding with a deep breath. Feedback poured in post-event. Emails praising the program's heart, offers for expansions. One mentee hugged me goodbye, tears in her eyes, arms squeezing tight. You changed my path. Walking home that night, streets quiet, my steps echoed triumphantly. I'd used success not for revenge but elevation, reclaiming my legacy as a beacon for others, family name now synonymous with empowerment etched on my terms. The exhibit's lights had dimmed hours ago, the warehouse echoing with the faint sounds of cleanup, brooms sweeping, frames being stacked with soft clunks. As I lingered in the quiet space, my fingers trailing the edge of a mentee's canvas that still hung on the wall. The paint was textured under my touch, ridges of color telling a story of resilience, much like my own. The night had been a whirlwind, guests milling about, glasses clinking in toasts, compliments flowing like the wine that had been poured generously. But now, alone amid the remnants, I sank onto a stool in the center of the room, the metal cool against my legs through my dress, and let the weight of it all settle. This wasn't just an event's end, it was the culmination of my journey, a profound internal realization that my worth wasn't tethered to anyone's approval, family or otherwise, but rooted deep within me, a quiet peace I'd cultivated through every ignored achievement and hard-won boundary. It hit me gradually, like dawn creeping in. I stared at the whiteboard still marked with our planning notes, my handwriting mixed with others, the ink smudged in places from enthusiastic erasures. The mentorship program had started as a way to give back, but it had become my mirror, reflecting back the strength I'd built in silence. I remembered the early days after the gala, the key in my pocket a symbol of escape, but now I saw it as a key to myself. My family's neglect had been the soil, harsh and unyielding, where I'd planted seeds of doubt, but the collective watered them into growth, conversations that validated, collaborations that inspired. Theo's laugh during brainstorms, Mara's steady guidance, Lena's shared vulnerabilities. They'd shown me community, but more, they'd reminded me that I was worthy of it. I shifted on the stool, crossing my ankles, the floor's chill seeping through my shoes, and closed my eyes, breathing in the lingering scent of varnish and coffee. Flashpoints replayed, the cafe confrontation, my voice unwavering as I set those boundaries, their faces shifting from defensive to resigned. It wasn't victory over them, it was liberation for me. No more chasing their pride, no more dimming my light to fit their shadows. The award trophy, now on a shelf here at the collective rather than hidden in my apartment, gleamed under a stray spotlight. I'd placed it there earlier, fingers lingering on its base as a communal symbol. My self-worth wasn't in that glass, it was in the choices I'd made since. I stood slowly, joints popping faintly, and walked the exhibit's perimeter, my heels clicking softly on the concrete. Each piece told a story, the painter's bold strokes born from parental dismissal, the digital installation flickering with code that echoed sibling rivalry. Mentoring them, I'd mentored myself, guiding revisions late at night, my laptop humming, voice encouraging over calls. Your vision matters, I'd say, meaning it for us both. The realization deepened as I paused at my own contribution. A large print of the environmental design that started it all, now framed with notes from mentees pinned around it. Thanks for seeing me, one read, handwriting loopy. I touched the paper, crinkling slightly, and felt tears prick. Not of sadness, but release. My worth was internal, a flame I'd fanned alone in those ignored moments, sketching as a child while they cheered Jake, freelancing through doubts they amplified. The collective amplified me instead, but the peace came from knowing I didn't need even that. I could stand alone, validated by my own efforts, the late nights, the spilled coffee turned breakthrough, the boundaries enforced with quiet steel. Family ties? They'd loosen or adapt, either way, I was whole. I wiped my eyes with the back of my hand, a small sniff escaping, and smiled at the empty room. This piece was profound, a settling in my bones, like finally exhaling after holding my breath for decades. Elena had pulled me aside earlier, her hand on my arm, grip firm. "You've found it, the core," she'd said, eyes twinkling. But it wasn't found, it was forged. I gathered my things now, bag strap over my shoulder, the weight familiar. Locking the door behind me, key turning with a click. The night air crisp against my skin. Streetlights cast pools of yellow, my shadow stretching long as I walked home. Thoughts swirled, future expansions of the program, more exhibits, perhaps a book on creative resilience. But underlying it all, the calm certainty. I was enough. No more measuring against siblings' metrics, my metric was impact, joy and creation. Arriving home, door shutting with a thud, I kicked off my shoes, toes flexing on the rug. In bed later, sheets cool and inviting, I stared at the ceiling, fan whirring softly. The journey from overlooked to self-validated wasn't linear. Dips of doubt, peaks of triumph, but here in this quiet it felt complete. Peace wasn't absence of pain, it was presence of self. I drifted to sleep, breathing even, embracing that worth fully. Finally, the exhibit wrapped up, and as I locked the doors that night, a wave of contentment washed over me. Looking back from the gala snub to finding the collective, it's been a roller coaster of hurt turning into healing. I've learned that true family isn't always blood. It's the people who lift you up when others let you down. Setting those boundaries with my biofam wasn't easy, but it freed me to pour energy into mentoring others, creating a legacy that's all mine. So, what do you think? Did I set boundaries firmly enough, or should I have gone further? Drop a comment below sharing your take, and if you've got a story about finding your chosen family or reclaiming your worth, I'd love to hear it. Let's build each other up in the comments. Remember, your value isn't defined by anyone else's validation, it's in you, waiting to shine. If this resonated, hit that like button, share with someone who needs it, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories of triumph and transformation. Thanks for listening. Until next time, keep creating your own path.